Ahead of the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo went ahead and shook up how they present games that are purchased online through the Nintendo eShop. Virtual game cards are here to stay, and they bring with them a new set of features, limitations, and confusing terminology. Let's break down exactly what virtual game cards are and how they work for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 consoles. First off, let's answer the big question here. What exactly is a virtual game card? Put simply, virtual game cards are your digitally purchased Nintendo Switch games. Where before you used to download a game to your console, you will now download a virtual game card instead. Virtual game cards are then loaded or ejected from consoles, in a manner that is reminiscent of loading and ejecting physical game cartridges. This applies to all Switch games that you have purchased digitally before now, as well as all Switch game purchases you make going forward. For the most part, the gaming experience is the same. Users on the same system will be able to play your virtual game cards, and you can play these games offline as well once they are downloaded. But there are also some unique features that this new system allows for. Because Nintendo now treats these digital purchases as game cards, quote unquote, they will also let you share them in a way that's similar to sharing physical game cartridges. Before this, it was much more difficult to share digital copies of games without just sharing your whole account. On Switch 1 devices with the most recent system software and Switch 2 devices, you should see a virtual game cards button on the home menu. Opening this menu and selecting a user will show all of that user's virtual game cards in one place. Full games and DLC will both be shown here, but any games that you own the physical cartridges for will not be shown, as those are just regular game cards, not virtual ones. From this menu, you can see which virtual game cards are currently loaded on your system and which aren't. You can also load or eject multiple virtual game cards at once from this menu. When you select a specific title, you have a few options to choose from. Load to another console allows you to move your virtual game cards between two linked consoles that you own and use concurrently. You can't have a virtual game card loaded on more than one console at a time. So if you use multiple systems, you will want to make use of this feature so that your digital purchases aren't locked to one console. This only works for linked consoles though. Selecting the Load to Another Console button brings up instructions for linking two consoles. Both of these consoles will need to be in the same room for the initial pairing process, but once the consoles are paired, you can freely swap virtual game cards between the two systems at any time, so long as they are both connected to the internet. You will also need to be signed in to the same Nintendo account on both systems to use this feature. Once two consoles are linked, you can use the my.nintendo.com website to access your account settings. From here, you can load, eject, and swap virtual game cards from two linked systems as you see fit. Lend to Family Group Member is the other major option in the Switch menu that allows you to share your virtual game cards with other Nintendo Switch users who are in the same family group as you. There are some caveats and limitations to this feature, but it is cool that you can now share digitally purchased games with family and friends. Sharing a game with family group members needs to be done in the same room. Unfortunately, this isn't a one-off like the linked console pairing process. This needs to be done every time you use this feature. Once you've shared your virtual game card with someone, their Switch will start downloading the game files from the eShop, and they will have access to your virtual game card for 14 days. During that time, you won't be able to use that virtual game card on your own systems. A person lending out their virtual game cards can lend up to 3 different virtual game cards at once across the family group. A person borrowing a virtual game card can only borrow one virtual game card at a time. Once 14 days is up, the lender will automatically receive their virtual game card back again. The lender can also decide that they want their virtual game card back at any time and choose to collect from family group member. The borrower will then lose access to the game, but will retain all of the save files that they created in that time, so they can pick up where they left off if they borrow that same game again, or purchase it for themselves. There are more options to choose from in the individual options menu here too, the most important one being Eject. An ejected virtual game card will still be installed on your system, so you can reload it at any time when connected to the internet and keep playing your game. Ejected virtual game cards are free to be installed on any system you are signed into without needing to pair consoles. So if you use more than 2 switches regularly, manually ejecting your games from one console and then manually loading them on the other may be an easier way for you to load and eject games without constantly pairing and repairing consoles. Deleting a game from your system automatically ejects the associated virtual game card as well, so you won't run into any problems of having virtual game cards loaded on a system that can't play the game. With the previous implementation of digital games on Nintendo Switch, there were ways to download a game onto multiple devices and then use that one copy of the game with 2 different accounts simultaneously. The virtual game card system now makes this method of game sharing impossible, but there is a workaround. If you go to your main account's user settings and then online license settings, you can enable online license. This gives your main Switch the capability to launch digital games even if the virtual game card is ejected, meaning that another device can have the virtual game card loaded while you still have access to it. You can't run the same game at the same time on multiple devices that are online though. For more details, check out our Enable Online License guide in the description. If you're using a Switch 2 system, some select games offer Game Share, where you can play games together on multiple systems while only owning one copy of the game. Sort of like DS Download Play back on Nintendo DS systems. This is a bit more restrictive than what was possible before on Switch, but hey, it's something. That just about covers everything there is to know about virtual game cards, and I promise I won't say those words again in this video. For more information about the Switch and Switch 2 systems, check out our videos on how to set up a Nintendo Family Group, or how to transfer save data between Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 consoles. And for all other things Nintendo, gaming, and more, stick with IGN.